Giving it one more 30 more seconds to let people trickle in. Yeah, ready on the left, ready on the right. Call to order. The meeting of the South Hunterdon Regional Board of Education is called to order. Adequate notice, as required by the Open Public Meetings Act, was provided on December the 17th, 2024, by posting the notice with the respective clerks of the city of Lambertville, Borough of Stockton, and Township of West Amwell, and advertised in the Hunterdon County Democrat and the Trenton Times newspaper. Please stand for the flags. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Jen Besser.
Here.
Martha Dennis.
Here.
Gina Pichetti. Brian Keys. Kevin Kowaleski.
Here.
Aaron O'Leary. Michael Strauss.
Here.
Ronnie Todd Marino.
Here.
Jim Gallagher.
Present. Before we get started, I do want to acknowledge that Mr. Keys, one of our board member, is not here this evening because his wife recently passed away. Erin Keys was a graduate of South Hunterdon. 1989, I believe she graduated. And she spent most of her life in this community and most of her life doing things to help this community. She has two children who have graduated from South Hunterdon, a third child who is a junior here now. And I just wanted to say for myself, and I think I can speak for the board and the entire South Hunterdon community, that our hearts are with the Keys family, and we are thinking of them and praying for them. With that, Mr. Suzo, I think we have starting with a presentation.
Yeah. So, as we've been doing frequently at board meetings, trying to represent and honor some of our students for their amazing accomplishments, we have one this evening. So at this time, I would like to follow up Principal Jen McKnight, who will give you some background, and then our students will be coming up to be recognized by the board.
Thank you. Good evening. So the New Jersey State Seal of Biliteracy is an award given to high school graduates who demonstrate proficiency in English and at least one other language. In New Jersey, students can earn the State Seal of Biliteracy by achieving a score of 5 or higher on the stamp test in all 4 domains: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Seniors in our AP or honors French and Spanish classes proved their proficiency in their language of study by scoring intermediate, mid, or high in reading, writing, listening, and speaking. This is the level at which speakers are deemed fluently functional. While all of those receiving the New Jersey State Seal of Biliteracy reached a significant benchmark, it should be celebrated that many students scored well beyond it, reaching the advanced working fluency level in multiple skills. We are so proud of our students for this accomplishment, and we are proud to award this distinction to the following students. Our French student, Yesenia Guerrera. She earned both in French and in Spanish. Come on up. Next, in French, we have Iris Lee. And in Spanish, Kathleen Bartek. Dominic Carlucci.
We'll give him a round.
Ava Dugan. Lucas Gravier. And I must say, Lucas earned his while taking Spanish 4. He hasn't even reached the AP level yet when he took the test. So congratulations. Eduardo Lavaredo. Analia Ordonez. Nexeli Cruz Lopez. Aaron Parisi.
Aaron had a big day today.
Yeah, we just said it twice in one day.
Yes. For those that don't know, I'll say, I'm sorry, I don't want to embarrass you, Aaron, but he was named one of our two, him and Sophie Hinman today. You might have saw on Facebook, scholar athletes for the year.
Liam Syrak. Not here. Amy Xavier Gomez. And Dominic Sawatsky. Congratulations to all once again on such a great accomplishment.
Moving on to the report of the student representative to the board, Lucas, what's going on?
Hello. For sports, just to repeat what Mr. Souza said, our seniors Sophie Hinman and Aaron Parisi were honored with our scholar athletes. For softball, they have a win-loss record of 7-3 and will be playing in the Hunterdon Warren Sussex tournament on Saturday. Baseball, they're at a 7-5 and will be also competing in our Hunterdon Warren Sussex tournament this Wednesday. Track and field, our track team will be competing in our Hunterdon Warren Sussex tournament this Thursday. And as well, our golf team will be competing in the Skylands Conference tournament tomorrow. For clubs this month, Key Club has made a trip out to the Watershed Institute where they learned to cut down and pull invasive species. They also prepared a bunch of teacher appreciation cards this month. Environmental Club, our environmental club took a trip to the Youth Summit Climate, which was hosted in Easton. They learned a lot about different aspects of keeping our environment healthy and strong and keeping the world clean. Last Thursday was Bring Your Child to Work Day. So our peer leaders helped with fun activities for the South Hunterdon staff kids. The kids got to create a bunch of different cards and like tie-dye crafts and make cards and little paper mache stuff. And the peer leaders assisted with that. Yet today was a big day. It was the blood drive. South Hunterdon hosted our blood drive, where students, staff, and community members were able to donate blood. I, as myself, donated blood, and I saw a lot of my peers donating blood as well. This Wednesday is our Teen Arts Festival. So students in the jazz band, vocal ensemble, students who have performed in the musical and who are performing in our upcoming play, as well as students who have created visual artwork pieces, will be heading to the Hunterdon County Library to attend the Hunterdon County Teen Arts Festival. This year, there will be students from all different districts in our county. And May 1st, or this Thursday, the senior class will be deciding where they will end up. They will be wearing merch for their future college, university, branch of military, or future employer. That's all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Next up, we have our PTO and LAEF update. Do we have anybody here from the PTO?
I just got an email from Jess from the baseball field.
Okay.
For an update, so I'll read it. On Monday, April 21st, the PTO bought lunch and gift cards for our bus drivers. The Bus Driver Appreciation Day, that was right here. We actually were there. That was pretty awesome. So thank you to them for doing that. The walkathon at the elementary school has been pushed to June in an effort to spread out more fundraising efforts. More information will be circulating soon. The walkathon for 512 will be here at South on Tuesday, May 20th. Middle school on location end of the year events. 5th and 6th grade dance/activity night will be on Friday, May 30th from 6:30 to 8:30. It's a drop-off event. There will be a DJ, candy bar, glow sticks, treats, outdoor activities. There'll be something for everyone. 6th grade end of the year trip to Dorney Park is on Thursday, June 5th. And the middle school on location end of the year picnic will be on Friday, June 13th, directly after school. They'll have a barbecue style food, wiffle ball tournament, and inflatable obstacle course. Sounds like fun. Field day for the elementary school is on Friday, May 16th at the elementary school. They'll have inflatables and also a barbecue. Middle school on location field day is Wednesday, May 28th, and they're working with Ms. Ryan on more details. And I know there was several emails that went out today, but Teacher Appreciation Week is May 5th to the 9th. So next week, we've been hard at work and planning for all 3 buildings. Please look out for Sign Up Genius that went out. We have Parent Square this week. We need donations for all 3 buildings and help with setup and cleanup. If you want to help in an alternative way, please reach out to the PTO at SHRSDPTO@gmail.com.
How about an LAEF update? Do we have anyone here from the LAEF tonight? We do not.
I could think of there were 2 other things that happened and are coming up. So we had the talent show on Friday. And that's my favorite time of the year because there's so many talented kids. It's really amazing, the dance and the thing. It's just, it's heartwarming, lovely. It's just, and then the production for the, Our Place is on this Saturday. So-
Yep, Saturday night. Yep.
So that's the 1-act play, that the students are putting together.
And we also have the art show coming up, the first ever South Hunterdon K-12 art show. It's actually this Friday night. So here, we're really excited. We've never involved elementary before, so it's gonna be a pretty cool thing.
Okay. Correspondence, we do have two items of correspondence which are available online for folks to review if they're interested in seeing what people are writing.
Can I just follow up to that?
Please do.
So we had, just to let everyone know, we had 2 other correspondents that came in throughout the month. And we didn't post because they include student names and staff member names. So the board did receive those communications, did read those communications. But obviously, based on the nature, we didn't post them as far as our agenda. I just wanted to make that, you know.
Next up, we are looking for a resolution to approve the minutes, the regular meeting and the executive session from March the 17th, 2025. Do I have a motion? A move by Ronnie, the second. Second by Martha, thank you. Any discussion on those minutes? If there is no discussion, then we'll vote. It's a voice vote, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Does anyone need to abstain? Okay. With that, it is that time of year. We have to approve a school budget for next school year. And so we will be holding our annual budget hearing tonight. We will that will be a presentation on the budget, some discussion of that, and then we will be voting on that later this evening. So I do need a resolution to enter the budget hearing. By Michael, thank you very much. And a second, please.
Second.
A second by Jen, thank you very much. All in favor? Aye, we are in the budget hearing.
Thank you. Yeah, so this will kind of be a tag team effort with myself and Mr. Harris. We'll be taking turns on different slides. Just a couple things I want to make you aware of. You may have seen this lately in the bottom corner here, but I think it is important. as we have these conversations to really, again, focus on our strategic plan that we have in place through 2028, some of the different components, because I think you'll see as we go through our slides that there's a natural connection with our strategic plan and our budget. I also created a QR code, so if you would want to follow along on your phone rather than trying to read some of the smaller print that we up there, you can scan it. I'll send this out tomorrow and make it available to everyone as well, if they want to be able to go through the slide deck presentation. So I always start out with our mission statement, why we're here. You know, a small, close-knit district, obviously providing, I think it's important, the dynamic and innovative part, educational experiences for our students. This is something that we looked at as part of our strategic plan and obviously maintained through that process as we developed our new strategic plan. So that really has to be a driving force and something we should continually be thinking about as we plan our budget for next year. As we look at our goals for this year, and many were, you know, followed from year to year, right? A progression, they're not new. So especially the first one, we've been putting a lot of emphasis on academic achievement. So this is not a surprise. This is something that will continue to be a goal for us as a district. We've talked a lot about MTSS, multi-tier system of support, and the different supports that we're putting in place. That was part of Jane Ellen's presentation back in October. We did our achievement report as well as our mid-year benchmark report. Professional learning communities, to providing staff the opportunity to collaborate with one another, grade level or content-based on a variety of different things, including student achievement data. Goal 4 is really, really important, social emotional learning. And, you know, I've talked about this before, but we do have a committee that's been meeting. They actually just met today after school all year long, taking a look at a K-12 SEL program for next year implementation. So there's consistency across the district. So you'll be hearing more about that in the months to come. And then obviously facility planning, and a major focus this year was on our 5-8 building, which I have in my superintendent update of where we are with that. But we're really excited as we come to the home stretch of finishing out our referendum on the 2 big projects that we've been working on over the last several years. So what is a school budget? Well, it really is a planning tool that reflects what we value, right, as a district. Going back to that mission statement, we must be fiscally responsible. We know obviously how difficult budgets are, and the folks that, you know, are paying for our budget. That's something we have to continually think about. It is a planning tool, and it is used for contingencies and to mitigate risk. So we're in good shape as we open up our new middle school in September, and obviously with our building, you know, that we just renovated in Lambertville. So, you know, our elementary school, both of those 2 buildings will be in great shape from a facility perspective. Obviously, this building we continue to maintain, and something we got to think about, you know, as far as our operating budget. But all the different things in these pictures are important because it just shows the many, many different activities that our students are involved with. And the hope is that we have things, even for a small district, to meet the needs of all of our kids and all of our kids' interests. So we're excited about that, being able to provide that. What do we value? So obviously student achievement and you know, academic achievement, it's really, really important, and opportunities for our kids. But then there's a lot of other things that really make us a comprehensive district, right? All the many extracurricular activities for all of our students that we provide, the social emotional learning supports that we have for our students, and also our staff, really being able to provide professional development opportunities, being able to support them if they want to go out of district for professional development opportunities and training. That's extremely important. Long-term planning for academics. We've been spending a lot of time on that. We will continue to talk about that, of how we're focusing on our data-driven instruction and looking at our assessment scores and progress monitoring and see how our students are doing. We committed this year to doing not only our achievement report, but doing benchmark presentations. We'll be doing our spring benchmark presentation probably at our May meeting, if not, or at June, just to kind of show how the year ended out. That's really important. Long-term plan for staffing. So there's been a lot of conversations happening over the last couple of weeks, right before spring break. We met with staff to let them know who's going to the 5-8 building, what they'll be teaching, who's staying here at the 9-12. So all of those conversations have been had, and obviously everyone knows where they're going now. And then obviously I mentioned before about our facilities, just making sure that we're maintaining, especially this building, which will now be our oldest building.
So it all starts in October about once the new school year starts, as soon as we get into it, we get back to it with meetings with principals, meetings with the directors, to talk about what are our needs for the following year. So once that occurs, then I'll sit down with Tony, the superintendent, to discuss, the preliminary budget. I will get final budgets from principals and directors no later than December 20th. Right around that time, we also meet with the county superintendent and the county ECBO to just go over our current year's budget to see how things are going and if we foresee any challenges or anything during that time. At that point, we put together again a quick preliminary budget based on a number of different things. Sometimes it could be 2 or 3 different budgets, depending on a number of different things, in terms of state aid, tax levy, things like that. We review that budget with the administration team, and then in February, we look to do that with the finance committee and said, this is what we think the budget's going to look like. But again, at that point, we haven't received state aid numbers, so everything is tentative. Once the governor's address comes out in February, 2 days later, we do get those state aid numbers and we're able to finalize and then do the budget work session. We do a preliminary budget approval in March, but that, so we can submit that to the county for approval. And then from there, we end up here tonight with our final public hearing to adopt the budget. So again, that's where we are in our budget planning process. We've drafted the final budget, and tonight we'll be asking the board to adopt that budget for 25-26. Some important terms, again, general fund, that's the money that is used to pay for current year programs. Tax levy, that's the sum raised by the school district after subtracting out other revenues like state aid and federal aid. Debt service, that's like referendum, it's the money that's required to cover repayment of the interest and principal in our debt. Fund balance, that's anything that the school district has left over at the end of its fiscal year. Bank cap, this is an important one we're going to talk about a little bit later. Bank cap is something that allows the district to exceed the 2% cap at some point during the budget process. And then capital reserve is the reserve account we use for the approved capital projects. And then another term that's important in this process is equalization rate, which represents the average level of assessment in each community, which determines their percent share, which we'll talk about a little bit in a moment.
Which, by the way, just we'd like to clarify that we do not make that decision on equalization rate. That comes from the county.
So factors that affect the budget, again, staffing and benefit represent the majority. We'll look at that in the pie chart in a little bit. Special education programming and services, extracurricular, co-curricular activities, so that's your sports and that's all your after-school activities. Maintenance and operations, as Tony said, keeping the buildings open and running and safe and good, ready for education. Transportation, that's buses, bus drivers, that's getting everybody to and from school safely. That's after-school activities, that's late buses. And then ratables and state aid. So again, ratables, that's your tax levy. And then state aid is dependent every year on the governor and the assembly. So here's the breakout. This is from last year's audit. 60% of our budget is made up of salaries. You can see 2% is utilities, 7% is tuition. That's for students that can attend in district. 17% is benefits. So as we said before, salaries and benefits make up the vast majority of the budget. In this case, 77%. It's usually anywhere between 75 and 80. You will see some other numbers that seem a little smaller compared to what their actual costs are, and that's just because salaries is all salary. So things like transportation might be more than 3%, but that's transportation without the salaries included. So again, salaries, benefits, classroom supplies, program supplies, that's your curriculum materials, special education, technology, that's your laptops, that's your Chromebooks, the subscriptions that go into the classroom on every single day, internet hotspots for students that don't have internet access at home, textbooks, everything that you need for co-curricular activities, not just the paying for the people to do them, but all the supplies and materials that go into that. Same thing for extracurricular activities. Your custodial and maintenance, your utilities, so that's keeping the lights on, that's oil, that's heat, that's gas, grounds and maintenance, curriculum instruction, professional development, as Tony said, is very important. The curriculum writing and making sure we understand what's in the textbooks, transportation, and then polytech tuition, which Tony will talk a little bit about.
So we dug into this pretty significantly in our board work session because I think it's important for everyone to understand the way this works. So if you've been following along, right, we have students now that participate in our Polytech program. And for the most part, what the Polytech's been in the past is a program, more of a part-day program. for students in 11th and 12th grade, where they would go part of their day and then they would come back and their other half of the day, either in the morning or the afternoon, would be with us. But that's evolved over the last several years. So now what's happening is they are developing 4-year programs, right? So not 2-year, but 4-year, meaning that students now have the opportunity in 9th grade to go to Polytech for a variety of different programs, and they don't come to us at all. There's a brand new building that's opening up on the North Hunterdon campus in September. It has a whole host of other 4-year programs. And what's happening with Polytech, they're actually going to be eventually phasing out their 11th and 12th grade programs, and all of their programs will now become 9-12, right, in the next couple of years. So that's significant because I think folks don't realize that we have students that go to either a partial day program or now a full day program. We have to pay tuition for that. Okay, it's not just free. And if you look at it for this year in particular, you can see that the tuition rate per student for a full day 4-year program was $9,848. For a halftime program was $5,112. So we had 11 students in the full-time program this year and 21 students in the half-day program. So that's $215,680. We also have to provide transportation for those students, so back and forth to Polytech. That's an additional 63, almost 64,000. So just this year, it's cost $279,351 for that program. We also lose all of our state aid, so we get state aid for students that we have enrolled in our district. But if they're enrolled in Polytech, we lose that state aid money. We don't get it. So it's one of the reasons why you've probably heard we've had some significant conversations about a performing arts academy here at our high school starting in the 26-27 school year. Because as we continue to lose students and we continue to lose funding, it is a concern, right? So we sat back and talked about, you know, what is it we could do to perhaps develop a program that we would not only attract students to stay in South Hunterdon, but also attract students from other communities to come to South Hunterdon. So we are in the process, and you'll hear more about this probably in our May meeting in my superintendent update, but we are in the process of developing a partnership with Polytech to open up an academy. The first year of the academy will have dancing theater and technical theater. And then eventually the year after, more vocal and like band instrumental. And the goal is when other districts have to pay the $9,848, they would be paying us a percentage of that to come to South Hunterdon, and they would be our students. So I just want to, you know, make sure you're aware of that because it is obviously an expenditure that we have to focus on, you know, when we're building our budget. The nice thing for Polytech is because there's been concerns about tuition increasing, we did just get notification that they are going to flatline the tuition for next year. Originally, they had planned on raising it 3%, and they decided because some of the districts with a 2% cap didn't, you know, respond real well to the 3% increase. So at least for next year, they're going to keep the tuition at $9,848, and then we'll see where we go from there. But it is something we have to plan on, as more and more of our students may take advantage of that.
So we talked a lot about expenditures. How do we pay for it? So the revenues that the district receives. So we get about $4.4 million in state aid. That's this year's number. Federal aid, we typically get somewhere around 1.4% of our total budget in federal aid, but we're anticipating a 25% reduction in that number. That could represent as much as $100,000 to $150,000, depending on what the reduction ends up being. Tax levy makes up the vast majority of the revenues, again about 85%. Also, preschool expansion aid represents about $1 million. School choice funding represents almost $1.9 million in this year's budget. CEA program rent. So when you rent a couple of classrooms to the CEA school, which represents about $160,000 for next year. Fund balance, that's money that was available from last year's budget or from this year's budget that we can use in next year's budget. And this time it will be about $200,000. Student activities fees, municipal miscellaneous revenues, things like that will represent about $53,000, or at least did last year. We hope it will equal that or exceed that this year. And then interest on bank accounts, last year's interest was about $44,000. That's excluding the NJ Arm account.
Just a couple things to mention real quick. The challenge with the federal money is we're not going to find out until the end of May, June, what that is, right? So obviously we're here tonight, hopefully adopt our budget. So we're guesstimating based on what we've been told, to anticipate a 25% reduction, but we don't have those numbers and we will not have those numbers. You know, probably for about another month or so, so that makes it challenging. The other thing I just wanted to mention too, some folks may not know what is municipal, so we do have a very talented employee in our district, Alan Albanier, who's in our maintenance staff, who has the ability to recognize when maybe something has outlived its life for us as far as equipment or different things that we have within the district. And he puts it on the municipal site for folks to be able to look at and bid on and purchase. And we've generated a good amount of money over the last several years as a revenue in our budget by doing that.
So budget challenges, there's a tax levy cap of 2%. The board cannot exceed that except in a few different instances. But in general, the law states that it can only go 2% without going out for a vote to the public. One of those allowances that allows you to do that is called a health benefit adjustment. And we'll talk about that in just a couple of slides. That will allow the board to exceed the 2% cap without going out for a vote. Average salary increases across Hunterdon County have been well above 2%. We are currently in negotiations with our largest bargaining unit right now, but we expect that to be above the 2%, the settlement to be above the 2% tax levy cap. Health benefits for 25-26 is expected to increase 11% for medical and 11% for prescription. The state health benefit plan is 15%, so we're still in the right plan, but health benefit increases have been going up significantly the past several years. SEMI reduction. SEMI is a federal funds program that helps schools pay for medically related services medically related. This school year, we received almost $32,000, and that's been reduced to $4,500 for the next year. So a reduction of over $25,000. Energy costs are expected to increase in double-digit, if not high double-digit percentages for next year. Transportation costs with fuel and repairs continue to exceed 2%. Out-of-district tuition, which is an unknown, but that typically exceeds 2%. And then, as Tony mentioned, Polytech tuition. So again, what's the impact of these salary increases? So total salaries for 24-25, if there was zero increase in that, it would be about $14,255,000. If there was a 3% increase, then that increase would be about $427,000. If it was a 3.25 or a 3.5, you can see those numbers go up. Each 0.25% is $35,648. So again, depending on what is agreed upon, the impact could be $427,000. It could be almost $500,000. It could be more.
And correct me if I'm wrong, just raising our budget 2% is about $400,000.
That is correct.
So obviously, you kind of do the math there, how that plays out.
So again, as we mentioned, health benefit increases, that's also a challenge. An 11% increase over this year's health benefit cost would increase it by about $451,000 after some employee contributions and things like that. It's a significant number. So again, as Tony said, a tax levy 2% increase is approximately $400,000. A 3% salary increase would equal approximately $427,000, with a health benefit cost that we know is going to increase probably about $450,000. So again, on our next slide, that's where we talk about negative budgeting. So we know right off the bat, going into 25-26, we're looking at almost an $880,000 deficit before we even talk about what that tax levy increase could be. Other things that go into the budget again are the ratables, and we'll talk about this in a little bit as we talk about the tax levy. Again, the ratables have increased in each municipality for 25-26. You can see how they've gone up, and that impacts overall things like your school tax rate. Percentage share, that's what Tony had mentioned before. We don't determine this. This is determined by the county and the state. For 24-25, the percentage share was 52.6% for Lambertville, 5.8% for Stockton, and 41.5% for West Amwell. This is a list. I know it's tough to see, but this is a list you want to be at the bottom of. This is all the school districts in Hunterdon County, and this is their overall school tax rate. So as you can see, the three municipalities that make up South Hunterdon Regional, West Amwell Township, Lambertville City, and Stockton Borough are in the bottom four of this list. So again, even though we do talk about increasing taxes with the tax levy, it's still something where we feel that we're doing a strong job because of being at the bottom of this particular list.
So tonight, as part of our budget, we have funding allocated to our capital reserve account. And there's two projects in particular that we're focusing on. So if you followed along with the board, back in the late fall, we spent a lot of time really starting in the summer, but then in September and October, talking about facilities. And now that we become a 512 campus, it was really important. The board made a commitment. How can we do the best we possibly can to keep all of our student athletes on school grounds? Right. Right now, we have a lot of different programming, especially middle school, that's going off school grounds because we don't have enough fields. So we looked at, if you remember at the time, the possibility of clearing out a significant portion of the wood behind the new middle school to develop some field space out there. When we did that and had some engineering on that, we basically concluded that we would be able to get a softball field in there, a varsity softball field, and we would be able to get like a multi-purpose field, but we would not be able to get a regulation size multi-purpose field that could be utilized for games, only for practices. And the price tag estimate on that was between 1.6 and $2 million. Right. So then we started to really take a step back beyond all the clearing of the trees, which was a concern as well. What if we looked at the possibility of taking our football field, which is probably only used 4 or 5 times a year for our home games in the fall season, and put in turf. And then it could be utilized every day, pretty much 6 days a week by all of our different programs, as well as in the spring, because we could put a softball diamond on it and be able to use it for middle school softball. And instead of sending our middle school softball team to Hewitt Park, we could wind up keeping them on campus. So the board, after much discussion in December, did approve a quote for a turf field. It is part of the budget as far as one of our capital projects. We are working on that, working through the testing of the soil, DRCC, Delaware River Canal Commission, and all the different permitting to move forward with that project. And then the second project is the city parking lot next to our elementary school. So everyone knows who's been to Lambertville how challenging that lot can be. We've been working on this for a while now. I just had a conversation this afternoon with Mayor Noack about it. So we are also working through the city is working through the DRCC and permitting for that particular space. So just so everyone knows kind of how it played out, when the application was put in to take that parking lot and actually pave it with permeable paving, right? So it's pervious paving that we have to put in that parking lot. The DRCC wound up looking at all of the field space, not just the parking lot, but also Ely Field, as it considered it one whole site rather than just the parking lot. And I will say that over the years, there were some things that were done in Ely Field that did not go through DRCC approval. So as part of that, the city is working with DRCC of where can we find some type of happy medium so we can hopefully move forward with paving the parking lot. Because it will be permeable, pervious paving, it's only going to help stormwater management because it's going to drain through. And when we did the paving and everything for the building and the lots that we own, we did all the underground piping and everything's ready there for us just to hook into. So again, we're kind of stuck, as we have been on many of our projects, some of the permitting processes that can be very tedious and challenging, but we're still hopeful that we're going to be able to move forward with that at some point. And as soon as we hear back, the DRCC did request some additional documentation from the city engineer, which, speaking with Andrew Noack, the mayor today, they're in the process of providing, and then we'll see where we go as far as next steps. But, that's a long-winded way of saying that both of these projects are in our capital reserve account as part of our budget. Keeping in mind, capital reserve is just that. It's for capital projects. So if you're going to be doing things like turf, paving, roofs, big projects that we plan for, that's in a capital reserve account. The capital reserve account is separate from your operating budget, right? So you could have, not that we do, but you could have $10 million in your capital reserve account. You can't take money out of that and put it into your budget to inflate your budget, right? It's not legal to be able to do that. That money has to be earmarked just for capital projects. It cannot be used for your general operating budget that is, under the guidelines of the 2% tax levy. They're apples and oranges. So what does this budget include? Well, it includes obviously the opening and final stages of our new middle school. It maintains our class sizes, which you're gonna see in a second. It also has several full-time employee positions that we'll need for the middle school, a Spanish position, a French position. You'll see we have a candidate on our personnel agenda tonight for the art position. And then because of the square footage of the building, we're required by the state of New Jersey to hire an additional custodian because they have a formula they use based on square footage, how many custodial staff that you need. We will be hiring a custodian. But in the process and with the reconfiguration, we've also eliminated some positions. So we will be eliminating 4 full-time teaching positions and 3 paraprofessional positions based on need. So again, when we talk about, adding positions and we talk about a 2% tax levy, and then where we are with our reconfiguration, and you saw with salaries and benefits kind of where we're in the hole before we even start, this is the way that we do our best to try to get to that number, balance our budget. We want to make sure that we're maintaining professional development funding, both in-house, so folks that we bring to work with our teachers, plus the ability for our teachers to go out and do workshops. So that's in this budget. Obviously, mental health supports are extremely important. We know all the challenges that our students face when it comes to mental health. You remember that several years ago, we hired specifically just a mental health clinician who her only job is to provide case management to our students and families to do family counseling. She's not doing scheduling or college planning or anything that just focused on mental health needs. And that's in this budget. We will be implementing a new program K-5 for social studies. We're going to be maintaining this budget, 65 extracurricular and co-curricular activities and enrichment opportunities for students district-wide. And that includes a lot more opportunities for our students in 5-8. I think one of the things that's exciting about beyond opening up a new building and beyond the academic pieces is that we're going to have a lot of opportunities for our students in grade 5 through 8 to get involved in whether it's athletics, clubs, intramurals, all kinds of different things that they did not have access to in the past. Our late buses have been a huge success. The nice thing about our budget next year is it includes now, because it'll all be on campus, for 512. So right now, our late buses can only be utilized for students in 712. Next year will be, 5 through 12. So any student who wants to stay after for whether it's a club, activities, enrichment, sports, transportation should not be a barrier, right? We will provide transportation for all of our students. Home internet, Andrew mentioned before. So any student who has, a financial hardship, it's really important that they have internet at home. So we have things in place. We'll provide hotspots for students so they can maintain all their academics. We've had a huge push in dual enrollment courses. So many schools, and if you follow along in education, this is a big hot topic in high schools to try to provide our students as many opportunities as possible to earn college credit while they're in high school. So, students can literally graduate high school with a year under the belt of college, maybe even more. So that's a huge cost savings to parents. We all know how expensive college can be. So the more dual enrollment courses we have and we provide those opportunities for students, that's a huge win. And we have several articulation agreements to be able to do that. Gifted and talented program. So you remember last year, we did a review. We had a consulting company come in and do a review of our enrichment program. We've had a committee that's met throughout the year, an advisory committee that was chaired by Ms. Lennon. And we have staffing that's going to increase next year for our students that have been identified as far as our gifted program, as well as programming implementation changes. So that's all part of the budget. And then finally, I mentioned before the additional field space, for our 5-8 athletic program. Class sizes. So I think everyone, when they see this, would recognize that we are in a very good place when it comes to class sizes, especially compared to other districts and some of the challenges they're going through with their budget process. Kindergarten is always a TBD because we never know. We've learned in the past couple of years that we can't just roll over to preschool numbers of our 4-year-old because we tend to get a lot more. So, this year I think we're at 59. So you never know how that's going to play out. But again, this is like the final piece of our reconfiguration, and we can see where we are. And I know way back when families were concerned, I remember when we had some of these conversations, what's going to happen to our class size? Well, based on the reconfiguration, based on the board's commitment or budget, I think we landed in a really good place as far as what our class size will look like for next year.
So Tony had mentioned FTE before, that stands for full-time employee. So while you may be a single human being, you could represent a 0.5 if you only work 4 hours of an 8-hour day, or if you have a bus route that's 4.5 hours or 5 hours, it might be some fraction of that. So you can see all these numbers don't end in nice decimals because of different number of hours that people may work. You can see in 2019, 2020, the district had 199 FTEs. And in this budget, we're projecting 183 FTEs, which represents a total of, a little bit over $1 million in savings over those years. One note that we have FTE PEA. If the PEA funds went away tomorrow, unfortunately, these are FTEs that we could not put back into the general fund. So these employees would, unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to maintain them moving forward. That's one of the reasons why we're grateful to have the PEA funds to continue to maintain that programming.
So just so everyone knows, preschool expansion aid, that's what that stands for, just, we love to use our edgy speak sometimes.
I get lost in the weeds.
Yeah. The other thing just to mention, and we talked about this in our board work session. So we, when we came up with our reconfiguration plan, we knew this day was coming. So gradually each year, we've been kind of reducing staff more through attrition, right? Of staff left, depending upon the situation, not filling the position. So it wasn't all left like this year when we were actually going to finalize, our budget. So finalize our reconfiguration. So you can see what that's looked like over the last several years.
So again, just a little bit of tax levy history. So you can see in 2018, 2019, the school tax levy increased 2.85%. Now you see that the tax, even though there's an increase each year, whether it's 2%, 2.85, whatever it may be, you'll see sometimes the school tax rates went down, and that's where that ratables number that we talked about before. When the ratables go up, that can decrease the overall tax rate. So that's why sometimes you won't see a consistency there between increase in school tax levy, but a decrease in the school tax rate. But you can see over the past 3 years, 2020, 22, 23, 23, 24, and 24, 25, the tax levy has maintained at the cap of 2%.
And it's important to notice if you just look at like 18, 19 through 21, 22, although it's above the levy 2%, it wasn't something where the board went out to vote. It was for different allowances, which Andrew's going to talk about, that allowed them to go above 2%.
So we talked about bank cap. Bank cap is if you have an allowance. So again, there's different allowances, whether it's a health benefit adjustment. So for example, health benefit adjustment, the state benefits went up 15%. And so we are allowed to increase our budget based on the difference between what the standard increase would be and that 15%. So I know that's a difficult concept, but the basic idea is that if your health benefits go up over a certain amount, then you can increase your budget by that amount in order to offset those cost increases. If the board chooses not to do that, then the board has the ability to use that spending authority to go over the 2% without going out for vote for 3 years. So again, we have $99,038 bank capped that will expire at the end of next school year. So if it's not built into the following year's budget, then it will fall off and the board will lose that spending authority. Then you can see as they progress in last year or in this year's budget, there was $122,284 in spending authority that was not exercised. And if the board adopts the budget that's up for proposal tonight, this budget will generate an additional $271,916 in bank cap for a total of $493,000. But again, that's spending authority that would still require the tax levy to be increased. It's not just money that's sitting in the bank somewhere. So bank cap can be a little bit of a misnomer. So again, the health benefit adjustment that the board has the option for this year is $377,035. And again, that's because of the 11% increase to healthcare costs. As you can see, in the previous slide, the bank cap that is projected is $271,916. And that's because we are asking the board to go over that 2.5% and use some of that health benefit adjustment for this year's budget. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Another note is the board must use all the current year's health benefit adjustment in the budget before it could tap bank cap. So that's why the bank cap isn't being asked to be used, but a portion of the health benefit adjustment. Do I need to go over tax levy options? All right. Tax levy options. So again, the board could increase 2%, which as you can see, I know this is a busy slide, so I'll just highlight a couple. And that would represent the increase of $408,000 approximately. If the board chose to go at 2.5%, that would represent an increase of $510,592, and so on and so forth. That final number, the 4.63 max, which represents $945,000 of a tax levy increase, is what the board could do without going out for a vote based off of using all of those adjustments that we discussed prior. So that's all the bank cap and all of this year's health benefit adjustment. So that's the board's spending authority, but not necessarily, that's not what's being recommended or asked for.
So all the list that I just went through, what does that entail as far as what we need to make all this work to balance the budget? What we're basically asking the board tonight is a 2.5% tax increase, tax levy increase. So taking into account all these bullet points, taking into account the slide that Andrew talked about with the health benefit 11% increase, trying to project out as best we can with our current negotiations with our largest group, where we're going to land with that settlement to balance the budget. We're asking the board to approve tonight a 2.5% tax levy using, as Andrew mentioned before, some of that health benefit adjustment, go over to 2%. Yep.
So again, this a little bit of a busy slide. These are the assumptions that we use in the next slide. So to do the calculations. So it's again, just talking about some of the important numbers here. The number of parcels in Lambertville is a little over 1,600. The average home value is $448,000. These all, and then you can see the sources of where this information all came from, so you can look at it yourself. The percent share of 52.6%. And so what would the impact of a 2.5% increase have on the average taxpayer in Lambertville? You're looking at approximately a monthly increase of about $10.33, the bottom number of that highlighted column. So an annual increase of about $124. If the board went with what it had previous years, 2% increase, the annual increase would have been for the average taxpayer about $98 a year, or $8.17 a month. So again, this just kind of shows the impact of all the possible options, and then the one that the district is recommending to the board to approve tonight. That's for Lambertville. Same thing. This is the assumptions. These are the numbers that are used to determine the figures for the next slide. This is for Stockton. And again, a 2.5% increase on the average homeowner in Stockton would be an annual increase of $115 with a monthly increase of about $9.58. And then finally for West Amwell, again, you have the assumptions, just again, the information that goes into determining the next slide. So again, 2.5% increase for the average West Amwell homeowner would be about $156 for the year or $13 a month. Now, again, if you're going to decide to check my numbers, you will see that some numbers might be different based on where you get your information from. For example, when you look at the municipalities, user-friendly budgets, they do it over a calendar year, whereas the school district's fiscal year is July 1st to June 30th. So some of the numbers are going to be slightly different. So if you look at it and say, wait a minute, why did we use this number instead of that number? Please give me a call. I'm happy to walk you through it. I know there's a lot of information on the slides.
And then one thing I just wanted to mention, when we talk about referendum debt, which is totally separate from the budget, as you can see at the top in my slide, operation wise, that's our mortgage that we have to pay. If you remember, obviously, we're still carrying some old referendum debt from a project back at West Amwell, but that will be expiring. So that expires in January of 2026, right? So what will happen is the way it works, taxpayers will start to see relief from that in July of 2026. And you can see where, really the height 24, 25, as far as, interest and the actual principal, that number over $3 million, you can see that it drops for next year for 25-6. And then for the following year, there's a significant drop because that old referendum debt will roll off. And then we only have the existing referendum debt. So although that is totally separate from our budget, just wanted to make notice of that because I know when we talked about the referendum and the budget specifically, We knew the first couple of years was gonna be a bigger impact because of both debts that we're carrying, but obviously there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that is coming, where that will roll off for our taxpayers. All right, so that is our presentation. We'll open it up first to the board for any comments, questions.
Yes, we'll start with the board. Anyone on the board? So we've already discussed this in committees and we discussed this in last month's meeting, but does anyone have any questions about the presentation tonight?
So one thing that was not on your slide is included in the budget. But we had talked about tutoring.
Yes,
We are gonna do after school
Yes,
tutoring
that will
on
be
our own.
that is
It won't
correct.
be tied to state, rules.
Yep.
Eligibility requirements.
Yes, high impact
Right,
tutoring,
yeah.
correct.
And that, so typically that's Title I money with the federal, right?
This budget includes it in the general fund, so that way, in case there are.
That's what I'm saying, but
We wanted to guarantee,
Right.
typically.
Well, we
it
were
would
getting COVID funds
Correct.
for it, but it was only for certain sets of students.
But
Yes.
right?
Jim is right, historically,
But
Title
historically,
I funds have.
the federal program called Title I is the
Oh,
funding
okay.
source that covers that kind of program, and then we have used those federal funds in the past. What I think is, what I'm hearing is that we've built the money in for the budget. If we don't get federal Title I funds, we will still have the program.
Still
Yeah.
It will not
And
affect our
it gives
ability
us
to
more
have. the program.
flexibility of who we can use it,
Correct.
where Title I prescribes, that's why we had to do the certain grade level.
Okay.
Where now we'll have, based on the data, especially when we do analysis on our scores, when we start testing next week. That will allow us to target, and we'll have the flexibility to use it as we see fit.
No, I would just say with with regard to federal funds and, Tony mentioned we won't know until the end of our fiscal year, what our federal funds are gonna look like next year. And Andrew mentioned that we've already gotten the data on the SEMI program, which is a program that's run through Medicare, where we had a drop from 31,000 to 4,500 for the upcoming school year. We didn't use a percentage there, and I think it's worth noting that's an 86% cut in that federal fund. So we are hopeful that our overall federal funding will not be cut that sharply, but we do not, that is one of the uncertain things that we're dealing with as we go into this budget. Any other questions from the board? Okay, well, with that, this is a public hearing, and so we will go into a period of public comment. We'll open it up if you folks have questions. We'll kind of follow, this is not there will be separate public comment periods if you have non-budget related questions, but this is for questions on the budget. We will follow the same kind of rules that we do for a normal public comment period. We'll invite you to come up to the podium. We ask you to tell us your name and where you live, and present your make a statement to the board or present your question. If we can answer it, we'll do the best that we can to do so. With that, the public comment, this public hearing is now open. So does anyone have someone they'd like to bring before the board or ask a question? Okay, do we have any online questions?
One, but it's not related to the book.
Okay, well, we'll hold that for our regular public comment period then. It was a very thorough proposal, presentation, Andrew, thank you. So I will just say final opportunity for questions if I think we're good. So we'll close that period of public hearing. Lucas, if you gotta go, let's go home and get your homework done. Thank you for being here. Have a good night. So then we need to we are up next. We need a resolution to approve the South Hunterdon Regional School District's final 2025-26 budget. So moved by Ronnie. Can I have a second, please? Second by Kevin. Thank you. So we've had opportunity for discussion. It's our final opportunity to discuss. Seems that we are ready to vote.
Okay, we'll start with Jen Batchelor,
Yes.
Martha Dennis,
Yes.
Aaron O'Leary,
Yes.
Kevin Kowaleski,
Yes.
Michael Strauss,
Yes.
Ronnie Todd Marino.
Yeah.
Jim Gale.
Yes. Okay. Our superintendent report is next.
Just a couple slides on.
Okay. They're all slided out here, even though a lot of slides.
So just a couple things, shout outs. So we had a lot of, I mean, we talked about some of the different things that have happened, but there was two in particular that I wanted to highlight from last week. It was an awesome night and day last Thursday and Friday for preschool and kindergarten. We had our first ever pre-KK expo at South Hunterdon Regional Elementary School. If you had a chance to come, it was amazing. And there was a lot of people in the audience right here that were responsible for that happening. But I want to give a shout out to Dawn Rhodes, who is here, and then Kristen Intervides, who handles all of our kind of preschool as far as parent council group. And Dawn obviously is, you know, a coach and just huge with our preschool program. The event was phenomenal. I mean, the amount of vendors that we had there was just incredible. We had School Rock was there. So one of the coolest things about it was the kids from School Rock were performing right outside the entrance of the elementary school. And as I noticed looking around, all these community members, because it was loud, all these community members just started coming, not knowing what was going on, but like, what is going on? Is there a concert over there? So it was phenomenal, huge positive turnout. So many resources for our families. I thought it was really cool that the Commissioner of Education came because he will have a child in kindergarten next year. And he came in, you know, kind of under the radar, but I recognized him as soon as he did and went over and had a conversation with him. And he was there with his wife because he lives in our community and he was just thoroughly impressed and was raving about the program. So I know there was a ton of work that went into it. So I just want to thank, you know, Kristen and Dawn and all the other folks that I know were there working because it was simply amazing. And then followed up by that. So I love this picture. Dawn also planned with some of our staff Touch a Truck. So this is a great community event. We had it at West Amwell. Planning wise, the date got moved because the first date was bad weather. We didn't, you know, Dawn didn't realize it was literally the day after the expo. So, you know, we had to be exhausted. But we had all these community folks, municipality folks, everything else had trucks all over the place. We brought our students over from the elementary school that are in the preschool program in kindergarten, plus our students that were at West Amwell. And it was awesome. They just loved it. I mean, I have video of it. And the cool thing was our students in 5th and 6th grade, which you can see two of them here on the end, they assisted and walked around with our little one, right? Kind of got them from station to station and helped facilitate. So that was really powerful. The kids were just in heaven, as you can see in the front end loader here with the all sitting in the bucket. It was just a really awesome day on Friday morning. The weather was beautiful. So again, like just two phenomenal programs that feature, you know, I think especially Friday, we're both of them. We're just phenomenal community events. In partnership, all part of you know, our strategic plan and how looking to build those relationships with community partners. So just wanted to give a huge shout out to all of our staff and then Dawn and Kristen, you know, involved. And hopefully you saw, I did post on social media one of the recordings of School of Rock, the one of the groups. It was about 15 students. I almost walked over and said, "Where are you going to high school? Because we're going to start a performing arts." I'm just wondering. But I heard through the grapevine that I think they're all living in Pennsylvania. So it's just some updates on the middle school. So hopefully you all read the email that I sent out on Friday to the community and I posted it on social media. So Bach Construction, who's been the main contractor for our job, demobilized from the site last week. We had a lot of discussions about that because they are really done with all their part of the job other than punch list items. The last big piece of it is our septic system. And as you followed along, and I've been providing updates, and you know, I talked about this before with some of our other projects, with some of our permitting and dealing with DEP and DRCC. We did have some delays, so our septic equipment is due to arrive at the end of May, and then will be installed in June. And the question came up, like, because Bach's contract technically ended on 4/20, like, do we want them to stay on the site to oversee that? And if we do until July, what's that cost gonna be, right? And basically, that cost would have been about $62,000 to do that. To keep the trailer on site, keep their construction manager on site, and to oversee the job. So we made a decision not to do that. And we reached an agreement, which is actually on our finance agenda tonight, which kind of lays out what they need to do, finish out the job, and what we're going to be overseeing as part of finishing out the job. Landscaping will begin May 1st, so this Thursday. And if you didn't notice and drive by today, the fence is gone. So when they meant they were going to take it down the week of the 28th, they meant it because it was gone by 10 o'clock this morning. So the entire site is open and accessible. But as I mentioned in my email, and I'll mention again in my next slide, it's really, really important that we do not have folks going on the site because it still is a construction site, even though the fencing is down. By taking the fence, we had a choice. Do we leave the fencing up? If we did, it was going to cost another about $27,500. So we decided not to do that. You can see some of the pictures of the color schemes, lockers. And the gym just came out amazing. You can see with the gym floor, which is really awesome. So although the fencing is down, we can't have students. I know we want many staff members that want to go over and peek through the windows, right? We can't do that. We got to stay off the site. Eventually, we'll get a certificate of occupancy. Eventually, we'll have open houses for our staff in the community, but not until we get the CO. We have a flooring contractor, the same flooring contractor we use for the elementary school. It's right now installing all the flooring in the building, and we're hoping to be done by the latter part of May. All of our technology installation will start on May 19th. And then the same furniture company that we use for the elementary school is starting the first week in June. So we still have a lot going on. The entrances, are blocked at night. We're going to have signs up, kind of no trespassing, just to make sure we do our best where folks are not going on the site. And then something that's really exciting, we pushed really hard on this, but our new softball field will be opening up a week from Wednesday on May 7th. We have a home game against Denellen at 4 p.m. We've also, it's going to be our senior day. Fans will be able to watch the game and future games this season from the outfield. So as you can see, we have our brand new backstop, all of our sod for the outfield, our new solar scoreboard. I actually took this picture right here from home plate today, looking out from the field. It looks awesome. The grass looks awesome. But we have to keep all the parents kind of in the outfield area because everything behind the backstop, where sometimes parents would typically be, is still construction, right? There's big stones, things along those lines. We don't want anybody to get hurt. But we're really excited that next year we pushed hard, right? This was something that's been on our radar, something we made a promise to, the board made a promise to our softball parents. And the fact that we were able to deliver on this, just a huge shout out to our contractor, our site contractor, GMP, just has worked tirelessly to make this happen. Carl Caper, who's our director of facilities, has done an amazing job of getting this ready as well. So we're really excited next week that we'll be able to kick it off for the end of the season. We're telling folks, bring a lawn chair. We'll probably have a couple sets of bleachers in the outfield. And we're asking folks not to park at the middle school, right? Because the lots will be closed. You can park at the high school, or I know in the fall, a lot of our parents kind of park down the street there on the side of the field hockey field. You can park there. That's all temporary. Obviously, once we get the building done, then the parking lots will be open. But it's going to be an exciting time. We're going to do a ribbon cutting next week for the game. So if you're available, come on out. And I know that our team's going to be really excited to be able to finally get to stay home for a game instead of having to go down to the field. And then the last thing I want to mention is we did get, finally, we had some delays, but we got back the broker's opinion on the West Amwell School. So just for folks that may not know what's going on, we had a commercial real estate broker do an assessment of the property based on the actual school building, as well as the house that's in front of it, and how much they think the property could be worth. They came back as an as-is condition, so that we've talked about some of the challenges we've had environmentally with the water and specifically the business next door to the school. But they came back with this number, a little bit over $3 million. Just for those of you that may remember back in 2021, when we had that done, right? It came in about 1.5 at that time. Now the house wasn't included, but I don't think the house makes up that big of a difference. So this evening, actually on our agenda in exec sesh, We will be talking about this in further detail, some more of the legal things of next steps as far as what we're gonna do as far as, you know, perhaps the sale of this property. I have some information from our attorney. We'll be discussing about transactions and how this process legally all works. And then we'll be sharing more details of, you know, in the next month or so as far as next steps of the building. Obviously, at the end of the school year, by June 30th, we'll be moving out completely of that building. And then we'll figure out next steps before we'll make a decision on kind of where we go from there. So I have for my.
Okay, very good. That brings us to the first period for public comment for the regular meeting. Same rules are the same as before. If you have something you'd like to bring before the board, please come on up and state your name, your community, and please try to keep your comment in 3 minutes.
Okay,
Carrie, how are
thank you. So my name is Carrie Corboy and I am West Amwell Township resident. And I just wanted to, first of all, extend some sincere thanks. I recently sent correspondence to the board and had such a quick response, and probably more thankful I am that the board was so proactive and already has a policy in place since January to address, you know, if ICE were to show up on school grounds and how to handle that and to train staff. So just really, really thankful about the proactivity of the group. I also wanted to just ask, and I think it's a two-pronged question. One is I had a question about whether there would be voter registration activities on campus for students turning 18 or anybody new moving to the community or anything along those lines, either for the June primaries or obviously for the fall election, because I wanted to volunteer if I could help with that. And then more generally, just ask the question that I don't have children in the school system. I haven't. So if there is someone I can connect with just about getting involved and how to be helpful as a community member. I get the newsletter and I read them, but a lot of that's sort of after the fact information. So how I can get ahead of that and then put my hand up to help. So thank you.
So I'll answer your questions real quick. So yes, we do that. I can connect you with our counseling department with the registration. We work with Hunterdon County on that. And then I'm more than willing to be your point of contact. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Does anyone else have something they'd like to bring before the board this evening?
If I could just make a quick comment
Go right
based
ahead.
on the preschool event. I want to kind of rewind to that strategic plan that you started the budget presentation with. And one of the things was community engagement, and that just was such a fantastic opportunity. And you know my history with the PTO, and that Touch a Truck event has been whispered about for years and years and years. I loved seeing that come to fruition. And then also the community engagement in the fair. It's just such a unique opportunity for us now that all of our students are together and that our staff can work and collaborate in new ways.
Excellent. This is a public comment period. Does anyone else have a comment they'd like to make? We do have one online. Do you want to read that one?
Yes. It is from Mark Donlin from Landville, yep. My name is Mark Donlin. For the past 2 years, I have been president of the South Hunterdon Regional School District Special Education Parent Advisory Group. And that our son is a senior this year and will be graduating, my participation with CPAC will be coming to an end. I wanted to say it's been a pleasure to be able to serve South School community, and I hope district parents will see the value of the CPAC and carry forward next year. Thank you for all of your hard work.
Thank you, Mr. Donlin, for
Serving your president.
being on that committee for a long time. Any other final call? There will be another opportunity for public comment at the end of the meeting. So if you have a comment, if you have a question that comes up afterward, but seeing as I don't believe there's another comment right now, I'll close the period of public comment and we'll move to our business. We'll start with the Buildings, Grounds, Transportation, Finance and Safety Committee. That committee did meet on Thursday evening. We discussed the preliminary or the final budget, which was already passed, as well as the West Amwell School and a number of other matters. But I'm going to seek a motion to approve items A through Q. And if we can talk about them, if anyone has any specific questions. Do I hear a motion? Motion by Jen, thank you. And a second to the motion? Second by Kevin, thank you very much. Discussion. Anyone have any questions? We are renewing a number of contracts, as you can see in item D. We have that's it. I mean, it's all pretty much here. I don't know if there's anything that's not explanatory. I would note that the lunch prices are staying mostly stable, except they're going up a little bit at the elementary school.
That's correct.
They're going up 30 cents per lunch at the elementary school. But we are, renewing that contract with Masio's for the next school year. Masio's has been doing it for a long time with us. If there's no discussion on items A through Q, then let's vote.
Start with Martha Dennis,
Yes.
Kevin Kowaleski.
Yeah.
Michael Strauss.
Yes.
Jennifer Batchelor,
Yes.
Ronnie Marino.
Yes.
Jim Gallagher.
Yes. Personnel committee, I'm going to ask Mr. Suzo
I can do
to
that.
give a quick report on that.
So obviously, we talked about the recommendations for appointment for the personnel actions that are on the agenda, but one thing I wanted to highlight in particular. So after a rigorous and extensive search for a new high school principal, I am happy tonight to introduce Mr. Adam Wright, who's right here in front of me in the first row, who I'm recommending to the board to take over as our principal for July 1. So just a little background, Adam is now the sitting principal at Manville High School. Before that, he served for several years as the vice principal at Del Valle High School. Before that, supervisor of social studies in Montgomery School District. And before that was a high school social studies teacher in the Montgomery School District. So it was a rigorous process, several different rounds. So we thank you for your patience, and we're really excited for you to join us officially on July 1. We're going to do a staff meet and greet on Wednesday this week at 2:55 in this room. And then Adam's actually leaving Thursday to go to Florida with his senior class at Manville. So he'll be back on Sunday, and then we'll work on solidifying a date for a parent meet and greet for him as well. So welcome to South Hunterdon Regional School District and High School.
Okay. So with that, I'll need a motion to approve items A and B. So moved by Mark, thank you, and second by Michael, thank you. Any discussion on items A and B? Then let's vote.
Starting with Kevin Kowaleski,
Yes.
Mike Strauss.
Yes.
Jennifer Batchelor,
Yes.
Martha Dennis,
Yes.
Ronnie Marino.
Yeah.
Jim Gallagher.
Yes. Mr. Wright, welcome to the district.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Curriculum and technology, Mr. Strauss.
So curriculum and technology met on Monday, April 7th at 6 p.m. Our technology update. There's nothing pressing. Our technology captain was captaining the golfing team. We did go right onto the homework policy. So over the last year, the policy has been created by a staff advisory council. It came from as a direct result of last year's survey from parents and community members that something needed to be put into place. So we are reacting to that feedback from the community. And we reviewed a preliminary version of it. In addition to that, the staff and the district parent council will have reviewed. We will be looking at it one more time, and then we'll be making a referral to policy shortly thereafter. We also made a referral over to school and community for the communication surrounding that so that it can be implemented in a full communal way next year. And as we discussed a little bit further, Ms. Lennon kind of went through a little bit more of scenarios of how the policy would be implemented more than the actual wording of the policy. And I did want to just point out one thing. We've recently added Wit and Wisdom and Reveal Math. And there are homework components in those curricula already, those programs that we can kind of just take and give to our teachers and use without adding any extra burden onto this. In addition to that, we talked about the Performing Arts Academy. A dance teacher has been identified and we will be running dance classes next year. That is a requirement as we move into the academy, and the next year is that the classes will have been running. And we are looking, and I think may have moved beyond to the point that it is satisfying a PE requirement for next year. The curriculum is being developed as we speak, and TCNJ is going to be working with us as a post-secondary partner. They will be adding a dance program in the next year. So it's really a wonderful opportunity for us to expand dual enrollment as well. We also got an update on the Gifted and Talented Parent Advisory Council. They did write a mission statement. It is in my update and in the agenda. And we also heard a little bit about parent information meetings that Ms. Lennon did for both transition to high school and transition to middle school. And those decks are included in the agenda as well. Just a real quick, we've got a lot coming up in curriculum. The middle school program of studies is going to be addressed in the next month. We'll be looking at the high school program of studies shortly thereafter. We also are going to be looking at a pilot program for grades 8 and 9 Algebra 1. And we'll be looking at the results of a pilot that we're currently doing with Common Lit, which is for grades 9 and 10. Nothing to move.
Excellent. Good report. Policy committee.
Over policy, thank you. We met on April 1st. We have one item for first read, which is a mandatory change to policy 8500 on food service. This is as a result of a change in the Federal Working Class Families and Anti-Hunger Act, which was revised requiring revision to several state statutes and ultimately our policy guide. The changes involve new terminology, expansion of income eligibility to qualify students for free meals, and additional parent notification requirements. We did notice in going through this that there's a reference to the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the New Jersey Department of Agriculture that is not correct, and we will make that change. Again, this is on the first read, so the board should review this and see if they have any other changes before we get to the second read. On the second read, I'm going to take this slightly out of order because I want to focus on the changes to the policy and regulation 9320, cooperation with law enforcement. We've covered at previous meetings. There were the mandated changes were 2 new requirements and 1 language change having to do with adding other drugs to a particular section of the policy. But what we talked about specifically had to do with changing language in section B3C when it came to notifying the district's responsibility to notify parents when there had been interaction with their children and law enforcement. And so those sections have been changed, particularly in B and C. We'll start with A. It says school officials shall not notify the student's parents or guardians in instances of suspected child abuse or neglect. And then, except as stated above, school officials shall notify a student's parents and guardians when the student has either been the target of law enforcement investigation or if they've been involved in law enforcement. So you can see that exact language in the policy that's been changed based on our previous discussions. Our next second read is our policy, our new policy, mandated policy on the spectator code of conduct. This has to do with incidences of unsportsmanlike conduct. There is a tiered disciplinary framework that's in place for first offenses for football, suspensions from attending the next 1 home game, from all other sports, suspensions for attending the next 2 home games. For the second offense for football, that's a suspension from attending the next 3 home games. And for all other sports suspension from attending the next 5 home events. And for the third event, there'll be the suspension from all subsequent home events. And of course, there is discretion that rests with the superintendent upon consultation with the principal if there's a need to increase disciplinary actions. Our next policy and regulation for second read has to do with student smoking. This is to make sure that both the policy and the regulation are in line with the memo of understanding and that we are appropriately notifying. We have to report on the use and seizure of electronic smoking devices. And that is it. So I would like to move our items for second read, which are policy and regulation 9320, our policy 9163, and our policy and regulation 5533.
Okay, so moved. Go ahead. Second, by Ms. Kraus, second. Any discussion on those policies? Then, let's vote.
So Gina Pichetti,
Should I abstain because I walked in halfway through Martha's presentation, or,
You can, if you feel most comfortable, you can. That's
I
fine.
mean, I read,
If you're comfortable with the policies and you want to vote yes, you can vote yes. If you don't want to, Excuse me.
Kevin Kowaleski,
Yes.
Michael Strauss,
Yes.
Jennifer Batchelor,
yes.
Martha Dennis,
Yes.
Ronnie Todd Marino.
Yes.
Jim Gallagher.
Yes. And school and community.
We can this month, so I am very grateful.
Okay, so I will be repeating some of what I said in curriculum on a very different aspect. But the first thing we did was review the school performance report and how that is presented this year. It basically is from the state, and we looked at updates to it. Again, chronic absenteeism, the seal of biliteracy, visual and performing arts, and discipline were all included this year, which is a change from previous years. We also looked at student recruitment and retention for the Performing Arts Academy, a little bit more about the plan. Mr. Souza shared what he has already received. It'll begin at the Hunterdon Arts Festival, and Polytech is developing a larger plan. The advisory council will be meeting on 4:30, so on Wednesday night, and there will be more information after that. And as I mentioned, we looked at the parent FAQ to support the new homework policy and discuss strategies to communicate and successfully launch the in 25-26. Ms. Batchelor was really very helpful in creating 4 key questions that were why homework, and why the specific amount, how do I see the homework, how much homework, and what will be the parent involvement at each level. So we are going to be developing that along with instructional materials for both parents and some key talking points for teachers at each building level. And then finally, we talked about the media alerts that are coming up, the after school enrichment being one of them, and the success of that program, and again, how it does involve the community. And then finally, the high school principal has been selected. We just approved, and we'll be talking a little bit more about him and also the selection process in an upcoming alert.
Very good. Very good. I can also tell you that LPS still retains that new school.
That's SHRSD.
Oh, excuse me.
It's hard to break.
I'm sorry. Okay, with that, we will go to item 11, our routine information items. We do have no report for this. We have not last one. Okay. The report, we did have safety drills on the dates that are listed in the agenda, and our student enrollment report is attached with the email for anyone who is interested in looking at that at home. So with that brings us to the final period of public comment for this evening's meeting. Once again, if anyone has anything they'd like to bring before the board, please come up and let's hear it. Uh, seeing no comments from the public, do we have any comments online? Okay. Then I'm going to close the period of public comment. And we do have a need to move to have a shorter executive session this evening. Will probably take about a half an hour. There will be no action taken after we come out of executive session. So we will need a motion to go into executive session at 8:30. So moved by Ronnie in a second, please.
Second.
Second by Kevin, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.